Hi there. So, yeah, this time I tried to stream the Reason in GraphQL this Sunday, but it didn't work, so hopefully stream is of better quality right now. So today we will talk about reasonable GraphQL and basically what it means about GraphQL in ReasonML. So a little bit about myself. My name is Vladimir Novik. I'm Google Developer Expert and independent consultant. I work in web, mobile, VR, AR, and IoT fields for various clients. I do workshops both on-site and online. So if you're interested to learn more about my services, you can contact me on my website or through Twitter, or just ping me on Twitter, say hi. So, before diving into ReasonML and how we use GraphQL in ReasonML, let's talk about differences between REST versus GraphQL. So, first of all, you probably used REST for quite a while. It's been around for lots of years. And basically, using REST means we're having lots of endpoints that we need to query. We need to consolidate this data on the client, and then basically we need to do anything we want for our app. So the question is how we use REST in ReasonML. And right now, it's actually easier than it was a year ago, or a year and a half ago. And in a nutshell, it looks like this. We query using BS fetch, so we fetch to our URL, which is just a regular JSON placeholder of posts. And we basically have fetch here, resolve a promise, we get a JSON response, and then when all magic happens here, we decode our post from JavaScript object to reason records. And here we don't post is optional, so if we have some posts, we resolve, otherwise we just resolve none. In our decode model basically is looks like this. We open JSON decode, we have our post, and basically we have all these helper functions to find this field on post and assume that it's an integer and map it to the actual post. So it's kinda looks pretty straightforward, right? But the question is, where is the problem? So I won't dive deeper into the presentation. The main purpose of the stream to show more code. So let me switch to other screen. So again, talking about REST API. So we have here regular Starwars API, and as I said, we can query various endpoints. So the problem is here, for example, that we have we query people and we get our data, and we have films with different endpoint, and we need to query lots of this data and consolidate this on the client. So let's take a look at the code. And here I have my ReasonML app, which starts from my index RE. I have app with just regular message, and here I have some kind of tab component. So my tab component, what it does, let me just show you this up really quick. And then you will see what's happening. Sorry, it's in the different tab. So yeah. Okay, let's open this up. And Yeah, I have some kind of error here. Sorry about that. Some kind of error. Failed to compile, exception. That's weird. Okay, that was weird. So we have this REST example. We can load posts, and basically it load dummy posts, and we also have such GitHub repos where we can load these repos, various repos. Okay, so we have two functionalities here, both load dummy posts and search GitHub repos. So let's dive into load dummy posts because it's a simpler example, and then we'll go into a more complex one. So let's get back to the code. Here, what we have is we have our tab component. Where was it? Okay, here we have our tab component, and dummy post component. That's the one that does everything. So here we have, let's start from the component itself. So it's a reducer component. We have initial state of just like not asked or something like that, and we have various sections. When I click on start loading post, I basically call load posts and go here, and I update my state with side effects. I'm calling just promise with fetch post, and then I render my post, either loaded post or loaded post failed. So everything about fetch is happening here in fetch posts. So as you've seen in the slide, I have fetch.fetch, I have the URL and string and stuff like that. So as I said, all the magic happens here. If we go to decode post, we have our JSON decode here. So what's the problem here? It looks pretty solid. It looks that it works. And again, previously it was much more complex to create that. Right now it's much simpler with BSJSON. But check this test property of a post. Actually doesn't exist on the server, but I'm still checking if it's here, and I have no errors if this is not here. I will just have broken UI. In addition to that, I will have broken UI if, for example, here I said that my my user ID is integer, and I decide, like someone on the server decided to change it to something else, and it just building up. So to see like how problematic it can be, let's get into our search repos component, which actually the one that searches our GitHub repository. And as you can see, I have much more things. I have repository and I have owner inside, which is again another type with bunch of stuff. And this is only like the tip of the iceberg of how long is GitHub API data. The problem is it's constantly changing, meaning if some one of these will change, I will have runtime errors. And that's not what I want to achieve. Everything about ReasonML, everything cooler about ReasonML, in addition to being like functional and stuff like that, is that if it compiles, it works. So if we don't have this statement true here with REST API, then what's the point, right? So the thing is, for example, and if it's a good, if in my use case, for example, I know every data field of this repo, then I will probably be able to match them to some degree. But I never know if this is, for example, is a string or if it's optional, if it can return as null, and stuff like that. So I never know that. Meaning for big APIs, in order to be able to map it, I need to actually run through thousands of iterations on API and pinpoint every possible problem and every possible and like find solution for that, right? Now let's get back to our presentation and let's talk about the GraphQL and what's cool about GraphQL. As I said, why REST is bad, you don't know anything about data types. Even minor changes can introduce breaking change, null stability, and much more than that. Like its nested structures can become really tedious to map and decode and stuff like that. So, in a nutshell, what is GraphQL? It's a query language for your API. GraphQL looks like this. This is Starwars GraphQL API, and the idea is that when I query something on the server, I have one endpoint on the server, and I basically can query or mutate. It's basically updating things or subscribe to this to some data. And the data I request is the data I receive. Amazing thing, GraphQL also has types, and this really combines well with Reason, and we'll see how magically it works. So just like to show you how it works, for example, if I want to query posts, yeah, sorry about that, I need to start my server. So I have this basic server which creates this dummy like playground. I'll just reload that. And okay, so I have this query, and let me try to query my posts. So I have no posts. The cool thing, because we have types, I have, and this is a graphical or GraphQL playground tool, and it comes with nearly every GraphQL API that you create. So we have a schema, and schema has various queries or various mutations. For example, for queries, if I want to query post, I already have this data, like what type of data it will be and stuff like that. And for example, comments is an array of comments, and it just goes deep. And so I can mutate, and for example, I want to create a post, so I can create it, and next time when I mutate, when I query, I get this post already in the database. In this example, I did just like a global var. It's like a really simple example. So you probably got the idea. And GraphQL SDL, like a schema definition language, it looks like this. I have query, post of type of post, and it's all of these. It's types, right? And types on the server. So the cool thing about ReasonML and GraphQL, they can, I basically can transfer these types from the server to the client, and you will see how it works, even in the editor and stuff like that. So also GraphQL has resolver, so if I want to resolve my query of posts, I just write a function that resolves this query. And with mutations, again, I just change data. So let's switch back to my demo screen, and this time let's stop this up, and I have a bunch of all these demos will be in repo. I will tweet about, I actually haven't deployed it yet, but I will tweet about this repo after I finish this stream. So what we want to check is Starwars API GraphQL app. So before that, something I forgot to show you with the search repos component. It's like a really simple thing. When we searched for our repos, I had to call this API with my access token. And obviously I will delete this access token after this stream, so yeah. So I'm able to use it with GitHub API, and you will see why it's important, because I will use the same access token when we'll talk about GraphQL and authentication. So right now, let's just go to our Starwars API GraphQL, and yeah, actually, I need to go. It's a server. So I will start it. And right now, let me just switch to different. Too much demos. Okay, so we had our REST, and right now, yeah, it's Starwars API demo app. And let's open our VS Code and check how the code looks like. So before that, I have this endpoint. If I go to this endpoint, I will see graphical, which is the same tool that I showed you in the presentation. So basically I will have dogs, and I will have lots of things. So I can query, for example, I don't know, people. I can query all people, and I can get total count of how much people in Star Wars movies. It looks I was pretty sure it's more than that, but yeah, that's what Star Wars API says. Anyways, let's get back to recent implementation of Star Wars API client. Let's go to our main endpoint, index array, and we'll start. Okay, so we have our app with message, and basically if I will start it right now, let's open it and see. What you have here. It takes a while to load. I don't know why. Yeah, so I have network error, failed to fetch, because I have this port, and actually my running port is different, so I need to change my port. Okay, it's another one. This is the port. Let me just close it, and yeah, let's work only here. Now we'll change the port, but we'll understand how our app works. So we have app RE, and here I have a bunch of things. So I have, by the way, both like in all examples, I have these utils, which are basically nullable string to element, pattern match, and reason react string. So every time you see STE means it's reason react string. So I have OpenUtils and I have model client. So in order to start with my GraphQL, I need to have all this. I create in-memory cache by running a poll in-memory cache and creating it. I create a HTTP link, and this is the link. And I have an instance, Reason Apollo, create Apollo client with HTTP link and in-memory cache. So in order to be able to use this, like Apollo in-memory cache and Apollo links and stuff like that, I need to actually install a bunch of things. I need to install all of these. And I need to install Reason Apollo. Basically, Reason Apollo is the one that gives me this ability to use Apollo with Reason, and it supports queries, mutations, and subscriptions. So I did like the short version of this talk at ByteConf ReasonML, and people asked about mutations, so you will see mutations in this stream. So again, we have this client, memory cache, HTTP link instance. We'll create our client instance, and then in our component, we basically use Reason Apollo provider and pass client instance to our Reason Apollo. So inside, I have this Starwars bold, and just a second. And inside this bold, let me open it. Yeah, so inside this bold, what I have is query, and syntax is a little bit different. So syntax is you use basically GraphQL PPX, and that's if we look here, it's a package that you also install. And when you use it, you're basically able to query things. Let me just switch to presentation really quick, because it will be probably more structured. So how we actually can get started with the Reason Apollo, we install Reason Apollo. Then we install GraphQL PPX, as I've said, and we install a bunch of these things. And then what we need to do, and it's really important, we need to send introspection query. So what is introspection query? And we do it like this. So basically, you can query any GraphQL endpoint, and when you do so, you will get a schema. You will get GraphQL schema that looks like this, and by using GraphQL PPX, Reason will be able to look into the schema, into these types, and based on these types, you will get autocompletion, you will get errors, you will get like lots of cool stuff. So yeah, we've talked about how to create Apollo client. We've talked about how to wrap it with a provider. And now we're at the point where we define our query with GraphQL PPX. And let's get back to our code and see what is done here. So the query is like GraphQL regular query syntax. It's passed in like these brackets and pipes. So you pass it like this, and currently you don't have syntax highlighting for this, but at some point I guess you will have. So when you create this query, you create a module. You create this module, then you call Reason Apollo create query with this module name. By doing so, you will get this wrapping component that you can use later on. Then I create just my regular stateless component, Starwars bold, and I have some kind of no films UI And again, this is the same as I would use a reason React string. Basically the same. So I just like a shorthand for that because I use utils. Then I have some kind of get film UI, and you see I have a bunch of JavaScript objects here, and on each one of them I call nullable string to element. And that probably won't happen at your real GraphQL API. The reason I chose Starwars API because it's like optional, everything is optional, and you have like a bunch of nested structure which are optional. It's really good for showing this for a demo, how you handle this type of things. So for example, I have film title and film director and release date and producers, and my producers can be actually handled this way. So it's an array map, and I check if it's nullable string to element, and I get reason react.array. My component is this. So I have a wrapping component that I created, and I pass variables by calling Starwars bold module.make with passed variables. Actually, you can pass variables to, if you don't know that, you can pass variables to GraphQL queries. Otherwise, it won't be useful, I guess. And then we pass basically Starwars films query variables to our variables prop on this component. Then we have a render prop which gets result. And my result will get automatic loading, error, or data. This will, like Reason Apollo will give you all of those. So if I'm loading, and remember in REST you had to create all these states. Here, if I have loading, then I basically show loading. If I have error, I have show error message. If I have data, then I start checking for, because we're in the reason world and we have everything optional, we need to check every component that if it's optional or not. So I check my response, I check if all films is optional. If they are, then I show, if they none, I show no films UI. If there's some, I show all films, and I just like go deep inside until I get into my films. And films is basically an array that can have optional film. So I just use belt array keep map to map over films and throw away all those that are none. And then I call array map with get film UI and reason react array. That will get me all this data. So what's cool about that, you can say, okay, but I have like a bunch of those nested things, right? So what if, remember that test prop that I added to Starwars API on the for REST API? Let's say I add test, and now it will yell at me because there is no such field on the server. Now, do we want to see the cool thing about that? This is my server running, right, with the GraphQL API. No, actually it's no, actually it's my app running, but somewhere I have server running, I think. Yeah, this is my server running. So I stop my server. I don't have server running. My app cannot fetch anything. Actually, I also haven't changed the localhost, so it can't fetch anything. And now, so server is down, right? Everything is down. I want to add this test, and I still have this error. And how cool is that, right? You have these errors in your editor for your type checking here, because, and even if your server is down. So it's like super cool, and like for me, when I saw that, it was like mind-blowing. You just develop things on the client, don't need to worry about server. As soon as you get GraphQL schema, everything just like works. If it compiles, it works both on the client and on the server, and it's like really cool thing. So let's just start my server again, and actually let me show you this app. You haven't seen this app yet. It's Star Wars demo. No, it's not demo app. GraphQL. The reason I couldn't find it because I haven't started it at all. Sorry about that. Okay, so I have my port 59149. And now, where I want to change that is basically in my app RE. I have this HTTP link. So I want to change it here. No, to the different one, 59149. 149. Now let's see if it works. Cool, it works. I have a bunch of data on like various Star Wars movies, and yeah, it works and it's really cool. So let's get back really quick to our presentation, and let's go again through all of this stuff. So I create query component, then I create a call. Like before that, I define query, right? The first thing. Then I create query component. Then I inside my React component, I call Star Wars bold make and pass all variables that I need. Then I wrap my UI with create a query component, and I pass variables with this Star Wars film query and variables. Then I have this result. And then I need to treat all the optional types. And again, in the real world example, there won't be such nested structure. And actually, there is a way around that. We'll see it in a bit. So demo time already been there, 2 demos. And now let's get into authentication. So let's actually get back to the code. It's way simpler to walk through the code, and then we will walk through the slides. So now I have another app, and it's called GitHub demo app. Let's open it. Let's stop this one. I will leave it here for now. Okay, this is my GitHub app, and here again I have pretty much the same structure, and this app does nothing except just getting my name out from GitHub, and just to show you authentication. So here you have the same setup, ReasonML provider, client, and stuff like that. And just a second, I will just hide my auth token really quick. Yeah, okay, so I have in memory cache, I have some kind of access token from GitHub. Then I need to pass my token to context handler. So context handler is a place where you can define headers for your authorization or whatever you want. And here basically I define it as bearer access token. This syntax is string concatenation with Buckle script. So if you are not familiar about that, you can read that in Buckle script docs. So then I create my auth link with create context link and pass context handler to it. Now, when I have this context handler, I have my HTTP link in memory cache, and everything basically the same. So I have create a poll client, I pass link, I pass cache, but instead of just passing HTTP link, I can use a poll links from and pass an array of various links. So for example, if I would use subscriptions in the future, I would need to pass WebSocket link here, because subscriptions are based on WebSocket, so I need to make sure it works here. And that's basically it. So I have GitHub repo and I have this query, actually get a bunch of things, avatar URL, name and description and stuff like that, but I actually render only my username. So actually it's a good homework if you want to play around with that, to open PR to the repo and just create your UI for GitHub with all this data already provided. So now if I will start this up, I will get my name. And let's get back to presentation real quick. I just need to I will delete token anyways, but still, I mean, it's not a good thing to stream my GitHub token, right? Okay. Now, just a second. Okay, I am back to the code and I'll start it. I'll probably get only my, I will get only my name. Let's wait and see. So okay, cool. I got my name here and everything. Cool. So again, looking at the presentation, I have this context header, auth link, HTTP link, instance. I path everything to instance, and basically I'm done. That's how authentication is done. So we have tips and tricks. We have we can use JS converter to convert between objects to records, and it generates for example, this is a screenshot from the docs. We can generate to.js and from.js function and convert between objects and records, and we can use BS record. And actually, let me show you how it looks like. And let's get back to the to the code and do some live coding. Okay, so this is GitHub bold, and actually let me open, instead of GitHub thing, I will just open Starwars. But yeah, okay, I stopped that, and my Starwars bold is here. I will wrong app, Starwars demo app. We'll start it, and now I have my development server with Starwars API, GraphQL API. So let's see. Yeah, okay, I have everything, and now let's change and break things. Okay, let's go to our Starwars board. So right now I have all of these, it's JavaScript objects, and they even though I have these types here, I don't have they're not really typed here. And I want them to be typed. So what I can do I can create type of film which will have a title of string, for example. So just like innocent type of film. And now I have in GraphQL API there is a syntax called BSRecord, and what it tries to do, it tries to take films array and convert every object to film between JavaScript object and reason records. And now I have errors. So my director is unbound because it's trying to convert and it's unbound. And here we will see all the power of GraphQL actually, with all all of these JSON schema types that you downloaded, right? Producers unbound. Let me add producers as a string, and then I will have release date as a string. And now it will yield me because title is actually has type of option, meaning it can get it can be null, right? It can be empty, it can be like undefined and stuff like that. So I need to specify it as option title. Option string. Now director is not good because it's also option. Now producers is JavaScript array option string. So I can say it's JavaScript array t for type and string, but it's still wrong. It needs to be option string. So it still yells at me because on the server it's defined otherwise. But my array is also optional, so I need to define it. So for example, I haven't looked at GraphQL code at all, right? I'm just here in my editor and trying to convert things, and I have all this data from the server. And again, option string here. And okay, cool, it's converted. So now I can call it as title, as director, can get release date, can get producers, and basically I can treat it as records. And for example, if I have like different type of stuff like that, it will yell at me. So also I can like spread on them and like do whatever I want to do with the records. So I have all these conversion here, and it's really cool. So this is first thing. This is super cool. And there is another thing that I've added. So if you look at package.json, it's called, and it's like really new, I think like a month old or something like that. Maybe more, I'm not sure, but I've seen it's like by Jared, and Jared wrote a blog post about that like a month ago, something like that. Proposal has been there for quite a while, but like the actual implementation, I've seen it only a month ago. So we have get in ppx, which is a really cool thing. So check all of these. We have all these nested things. So I have a response, I have all fields, and then I need to check if it's none, if it's some, and stuff like that. What if we could do this syntax, for example, and just go and inside nested structures, something like this. So that was a proposal. That was only like the idea to do that, and now it's actually real with get in ppx. What we can do here, and it's already installed. So when I install it, I also need to add it to bsconfig. Yeah, by the way, when you add Apollo, you also need to add it to Reason Apollo here to bs dependencies. And I get in ppx, I add to ppx flags. So it's here in get in ppx. And now let's get to back to our board, and now let's change that. A bit of live coding again. So I can say that I want my films, and I want them, and this is like the syntax: get in response all films, and let's do it like this. So what it will check, and now what I can do basically is, instead of just omit all of these, so my films are basically these ones, so I can remove this, switch on films. So I have this here, and yeah, and then just restart server. Something again is kind of wrong here. Switch none. Yeah, sure, because now I don't need this. Okay, I got like things mixed up, sorry. Let's check this again. So if I remove that one, then I will add these, get my films, then something like yeah, okay, I got my films. So you see, that was the problem. So if I check here, pattern matches values of type option A, but the pattern was expected what matches values of type. So all films, option films, and stuff like that. What does it mean? It means that my all films is not optional, and meaning that I can do it like this. So this is like regular syntax. With get in ppx, what it means that when using this, I expect that both of them will exist. If I use this, I expect that like only this is optional. If I use this, I expect that both optional. So I expect that all films are there, and then my films are optional. So yeah, so I can basically omit this once. I can omit this, remove this, and here I will change it to films. And yeah, sorry, something weird here. I don't have reformat enabled. So I hate it when it's like in this format. My settings. Yeah, okay, cool. Now I need user settings. I need my user settings, and it's format and save as true. Okay, that's weird. Format and save, yeah, it's true. Let's get back to our board, save, okay, cool. Whoops. Okay, so now it's working. We have our where was it? Here we have our get in ppx, and it's like super cool thing, right? We now can go inside all the nested structures and stuff like that. And like before, we check this BS record thing, and also really cool stuff. So now, and just a quick look, and how this is like the repo for that. And for example, if you have, you can do these ones. If you have x option int, you can basically like do these things, and it's like really cool, and you need to write less code. Yeah, so use it. Okay, let's get back. I don't actually have more things here in the presentation, so let's get back to the code, because I promised to you that I will show you mutations. And let's see how they look like. So I have basic server. Then I have and my basic server is basically this background. Wait just a second, for some reason. Okay, basic server. Yeah, this playground basically. Sorry, I said background. This playground, and yeah, I can query my posts, and we will create this mutation. Create this. And we'll create posts and stuff like this. So get back to our code. Now I have this post demo up, and let me show you this up really quick. Okay, so I have this up, and let's start it. Yeah, I know that I have lots of changes. I have like 4 or 5 demos or something. Okay, let's start this up. And now we will have like just like regular post world, and an ability to add these posts. So adding our post will be an actual mutation. So here I have just regular post if it's published, and I want to add test and some data, and I add draft, and you see also my queries are refreshed, and like everything is updated. And like another post, quorum ipsum, whatever, another post. And yeah, and I have is published, and basically you can change later on, play with it and change is published to be like, if you click on publish here, it will publish post and stuff like that, and just play around with it. Okay, so my post bold is basically looks like this. I'll just delete that because I don't need that. I have my post bold, and I have a query. I get all posts, and you see I use already BS record I talked about previously. So my post has ID, title, content, published, and it has comments, an array of comments, which is also a record. with ID comment. So I need to create two types, type comment and type post, and BS record will know automatically to map between these types. So it's really neat to do that. And you see I don't have optionals here because my basic server is defined properly, and those will never be null. So I need like less checkings of less pattern matching of on optional types. But my comments are totally optional because I can have like an empty array of that. I can have array without comments and stuff like that. Again, same utils. Then I have my my ReasonML create query for creating a query with post bolts. I have my component and I have a bunch of UI. So I have no post UI. So it's pretty much similar that what we've seen with the films UI. So I have no post UI and I have get comment UI and I have get post UI. And here I already don't have objects. I have records. And for example, for my comments, the only thing I need to check if it's null or not. If it's none or some, I check only for comments. And so I check if I don't have them or if I have them. If I have them but they are empty, I do again the same trick with belt array keep map and get my comment UI, and that's basically it. So again, regular query. I have actually I can remove that. That's from copy pasting. So I have my get post query, render prop with the result. I pattern match on result. If I have loading, I render loading. If I have error, I have error message. If I have data, I have these simple things. So here I won't have response posts. Basically here posts won't be null according to what they want defined on the server, so they will always be either empty array or array filled with posts. So I need to check pattern match if it's an empty array, then no post UI. If I have posts, then I just map or do array map. Again, I don't need to do belt array keep map because my posts will be there, and like this array will have posts inside, so I won't have optionals. So I get my post UI, and basically that's it. So that's for the regular query. So again, we recapped on how queries work, but we still haven't seen mutations. And now it's time to see how our mutations look like. So we have post compose, and here it's a little bit different. So we have our create draft, and we have mutation create draft with title, author, content, and we return ID. Now we have, remember create query? So this time we have create mutation. It's pretty self-descriptive, and that's the cool thing about Reason. You have like all the auto-completion and all the inspection that you want. So we need to update our state. So we have draft field and title, and just update title and update content, introducer component. Nothing to do with mutation, just a regular stateful component, reducer component. What I do for initial state, I have empty title, empty draft field, and whenever I change things, I send update title event and use like event with React event form target pass, basically event target value. That is how it's done with forms and ReasonML. And I call update title, or so I send update title function or update content function. And yeah, I update my title, and this is like for connector components, so nothing to do with the mutation. Now here is our mutation. So mutation will have, instead of having a result, it will have first argument as mutation, and the second argument will be a result of our mutation. it doesn't matter now what we can like put here result. Like yeah, can put here result, but because like we can like render different. If our mutation returns something, we can render it. But here we just need to update things. So now in the same way I call make function to pass variables for a query, exactly the same way I do with mutation. I call make function, I pass named arguments with like title, content, author, and then when I have on click event, I call my mutation. So this is like the syntax for calling mutation. I call mutation, I pass variables in the exact same way I pass it to query. Then I have this. So what if I remove this? Let's see what will happen. So I have my data and nothing happened. But if I will reload, I have this test and stuff like that. The reason for that is because GraphQL uses cache, and we actually have seen that. We haven't talked about that, but we've seen that here. Apollo in memory cache, like not GraphQL, Apollo. Sorry, Apollo use in memory cache. So we create it and we use it, meaning we need to invalidate this cache, and instead of just like do it manually, we can call pass refetch queries array with names of our queries, and these queries will be run when mutation is completed. So here, if you see, if you check our query, it's called get all posts, and if I pass this name, it will rerun this post. So now when I update it, it's already working. So that's how mutations work, and yeah, that's basically it for the that's basically it for the presentation, and yeah, thanks. Actually, it's not it's a wrong repo. Sorry, that's a repo from ByteConf for ReasonML. But I have like a couple of minutes left, so let me just open Twitch stream really quick. And if you have some questions about various stuff, I will be glad to answer them. So yeah, I am yeah, so if you have questions in room, I will like wait a little bit, and if not, we will wrap it up, and I hope you enjoyed. No questions? Okay, cool. If we don't have any questions, then thanks, and I will actually, you know what, let me just, okay, I will tweet about like follow me on Twitter, and I will tweet the repo for all of these demos, and all this video will be uploaded to YouTube, so you will be able to watch it later on and pause on things, stuff like that. But I will delete my API token, so if you plan to use it, don't. It will be unavailable. Another thing. So we here in GraphQL and ReasonML event, and this Sunday we will talk about building React Native apps with ReasonML. So make sure you like attend this, because it will be really cool. We'll talk about like various stuff, various techniques that we can use with BS React Native, stuff like that. In addition to that, if you go like that's what you are watching right now, right? So I have here several things. So of course you can buy me a coffee if you want to, but I have the suggestion box. So feel free to add suggestions for future streams. So I will be streaming more ReasonML content like in upcoming weeks. So if you want to like content on additional stuff, just let me know. In addition to that, let me just find it really quick. I will be doing ReasonML Bootcamp, which will be from the very beginning of ReasonML to like how you start, what is ReasonML. We will go into buckle script, in like advanced buckle script and stuff like that. So let me just open this link really quick. Yeah, so I will be doing this bootcamp with Tyler McGuinness. So basically streaming it on his platform. So just go to tylermcguinness.com, free Reason Bootcamp, and register here. And it will be 7th till 10th of January. And 4 days of like going into Reason, and we go into various stuff like values, types, bindings, scopes, pattern matching, variants. We just start with that, then go into more advanced stuff, then we go into tooling and editor integration and buckle script and interop and Camel standard library and Reason React and stuff like that. You already seen several things of Reason React. So these things is like building solid foundations for development in Reason. So check that. And yeah, thanks. Apparently I haven't created that end screen, so thanks for watching, and see you in the next streams.